Florida scrub jays are in great trouble. How climate change is impacting this iconic Florida bird species. We begin with humble request to subscribe to our YouTube channel Save Wildlife and follow us on Facebook and TikTok to support our initiative on wildlife. This story was written by Julia Jacobo in the abcnews.com and brought to you by Professor Salim, who is an ecologist. How climate change is impacting this iconic Florida bird species. Warmer winters are leading to increased reproductive effort but lower success. How climate change is impacting this iconic Florida bird species. Global warming is impacting the Florida scrub jay, a one-of-a-kind bird species, in a way that is surprising to ornithologists. UIG via Getty Images. Global warming is impacting a one-of-a-kind bird species in Florida in a way that is surprising ornithologists. A study found, populations of the Florida scrub jay, the only bird found solely in the state, have been declining significantly since researchers began studying them in 1969 due to habitat loss from rapid housing development in the last half-century. John W. Fitzpatrick, Emeritus Director of the Cornell Lab of Ornithology at Cornell University, told ABC News. But climate change is further complicating the survival of the threatened species. Florida scrub jays are now nesting 1 week earlier than they did in 1981, according to a study published recently in the journal Ornithological Advances. While longer breeding times typically lead to higher populations of birds, the number of offspring of the Florida scrub jay has decreased by 25% since 1981. According to the paper, the intriguing thing about what's going on with the Florida scrub jay is that for most birds, breeding earlier in the breeding season is an advantage. Fitzpatrick said, researchers hypothesize that the warmer temperatures are making the jay's nests more susceptible to predation by snakes for a longer period of the Florida spring than in the past. The birds are building nests and laying more eggs after nests are lost to predators, until they finally give up, said Fitzpatrick, co-author of the paper. From 1981 to 2018, the average winter temperature at Archbold Biological Station near Lake Placid, Florida, increased by 2.5 degrees Fahrenheit. The researchers found, the scrub jays used to nest in mid-March, but the nesting period has shifted to late February, giving snakes a longer amount of time during the spring season to feed on the nests. So while warm winters are leading to an increase in reproductive efforts, they are having lower reproductive success. The study found, an estimated 100,000 to 150,000 scrub jays were distributed all over the state before widespread housing development. Fitzpatrick said, that number has dwindled to about 5,000 to 6,000 individual scrub jays scattered throughout the state, mainly in the Ocala National Forest in central Florida. He added, the birds nest in the stunted oak vegetation that sprouts in spots where old sand dunes have left large sand deposits. Fitzpatrick said, today, those sand dunes are mainly covered with people and houses and orange groves and theme parks and golf courses. Fitzpatrick said, adding that being low to the ground makes them a prime target for Florida's plentiful snake population. The species, federally protected under the Endangered Species Act, is considered one of the most intelligent among birds, and scrub jays have exceptional spatial memory. Fitzpatrick said, they live in family groups and help defend the territory, and are a prized viewing for avid birdwatchers. He added, but climate change could dampen the success of conservation efforts for the species. Even in permanently protected areas like Archbold Biological Station, jay populations face ever-worsening odds of persistence. Sahas Barvleed, author and director of avian ecology at Archbold, said, in a statement, we've spent decades managing habitat for the Florida scrub jay, but there is one thing we can't control, and that is climate. Long-term study reveals warming climates threaten Florida scrub jay. It is published by Kathy Borgman, Cornell Lab of Ornithology. Because of warmer winters, Florida scrub jays are now nesting 1 week earlier than they did in 1981. But these early birds are not always getting the worm. A new analysis of data from a long-term study, published October 24 in Ornithology, finds that warmer winters driven by climate change reduced the number of offspring raised annually by the federally threatened Florida scrub jay by 25% since 1981. Warmer temperatures, the scientists hypothesize, make jay nests susceptible to predation by snakes for a longer period of the Florida spring than in the past. Researchers from Archbold Biological Station and the Cornell Lab of Ornithology examined 37 years of data to assess the impacts of warming on reproductive effort. From 1981 to 2018, the average winter temperature at Archbold Biological Station increased by 2.5 degrees Fahrenheit. There is significantly more snake activity in warmer weather. said Sahas Barv, lead author and director of avian ecology at Archbold, and snakes are the primary nest predator. These losses are compounded by additional stresses. In an effort to produce young each season, Florida scrub jays will keep building nests and laying more eggs after nests are lost to predators until they finally give up, said John Fitzpatrick, Director Emeritus of the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. Despite increases in the number of nests built and eggs laid over the longer breeding season, Florida scrub jays are not producing more young, said Fitzpatrick, co-author of the paper. In the bird world, there is a well-known trade-off between the number of breeding attempts and longevity. The more breeding effort expended each year, the less likely the bird is to be alive 5 or 10 years later. The idea that over the long term jays are experiencing an average reduction in reproductive success along with reduction in longevity is alarming, Fitzpatrick said. The findings suggest that climate change could dampen the success of conservation efforts for this threatened species. Even in permanently protected areas like Archbold, jay populations face ever-worsening odds of persistence. Barv said, "We've spent decades managing habitat for the Florida scrub jay, but there is one thing we can't control, and that is climate. What might be a healthy and stable population of jays now might not be in the next 10 to 20 years despite nothing changing on the ground." This study was funded by Archbold Biological Station, the Cornell Lab of Ornithology and the National Science Foundation. Many thanks for subscribing to our YouTube channel and following us on Facebook and TikTok to support our initiatives on wildlife.